Hey guys, Chris here. Welcome back to another vlog. So tonight turned into a very unplanned craft night. That's the best way I can describe it. I had a bunch of oranges sitting out on my counter that no one was eating and they're absolutely about to go bad. So I decided to do something with them before that happens. Instead of letting them rot in peace, I decided to get crafty because that is just what I do. Anyways, if you're in the mood for something cozy, low effort, maybe slightly unnecessary, or you're just curious about what you can make with dried orange slices, if you're thinking about doing this yourself, then stick around and let's make some things together.
By the way, I don't think I've mentioned, so I think I'm going to try to make three different things. First, a wreath, then a garland, and then some standalone ornaments that I can either put on a tree or put on ribbon while I'm wrapping a present so that it can dangle, kind of like an adornment or something like that. Anyway, this is just me struggling through this slicing process. First, my knife was super dull. I don't know if you caught that at the beginning. It was really hard to cut through. And then once I get to this kind of back end, I can't grip the orange safely enough to cut a thin, even slice. So a lot of these were super uneven, and I couldn't use a lot of these end slices either for this project. These oranges were really just about to be at the end of their journey. They were starting to lose their firmness. I threw a few of them in the fridge just so that they wouldn't be squishy, which sounds super gross. But yeah, nobody was excited about eating them in my house, including me, and I didn't want to make anything edible with them, if that makes sense. So instead of just feeling guilty and throwing them out like a normal person once they rotted away, I decided to turn them into a project, because why not? I also find lately that I really like repetitive projects like this, or projects where the action is repetitive for a segment of time. So right now I'm literally just patting dry, putting them down, picking up a new one, patting that one dry, and repeating the cycle. And I feel like this really helps my brain quiet down. It's really the closest thing my brain gets to be quiet, honestly, these days, aside from when I get a moment to read without being interrupted. So, something where I don't have to make too many decisions and there's no pressure and it's just simple like this really, really helps me lately. So, I find that I just tend to gravitate towards things like this. Once they went into the oven, it officially became a waiting game, which is not my strength. I love starting projects. I love, grabbing onto a new hobby or a new activity, but finishing them is optional, especially if from beginning to end there is a long pause or a long wait time. I tend to do projects where I can sit and do them all in one sitting, if possible. Like waiting for paint to dry drives me nuts because sometimes I have so much internal motivation to get something done in that moment. And the minute I sit down, or hours and hours pass by, or God forbid, days, oh my goodness.
All right, apparently those oranges take about 3 to 4 hours to dry, and I have to flip them around every 45 minutes or so. So for now, I'm just gonna have a seat and read some books.
I'm still working through my advent calendar book. I'm a little bit behind, which feels very on brand for me, but that also means I have a few chapters to catch up on tonight, so why not now? If you've never even heard of one of these, you're not alone because that was me about a month ago before I picked this up. And honestly, it's exactly what it sounds like. 1 chapter a day. That's it. No binging, no skipping ahead, which is kind of rude, but also kind of nice because you get to pace yourself and, you know, you get to anticipate the next chapter, which is nice. So yes, there are 24 chapters in this book.
All right, it is the next morning. I had to go to sleep, so I turned off the oven and left them in there so they could cool down and firm up. And this morning when I touched the center of a few of them, they were still a little bit damp. So I think it honestly is chalked up to me not slicing them evenly. I mean, I tried. I am going to be throwing them back into the oven for about 30-ish minutes at a time at the same temperature, and hopefully they dry up a little bit more and then we can get started. Also, I found the most appropriate shirt in my wardrobe. I mean, it's perfect. Anyway, I'm gonna go gather all of my supplies so we can make some things.
I went digging through my stash to see what I could use without buying anything new, which apparently turned into rediscovering things I forgot I owned. Always humbling. Anyway, as you can see, I have those 2 metal wreaths. One's large, one is small, which I think could work. I also have this one. This floral foam was a heavy contender just because it's really easy to stick things into, and you can just add a little bit of hot glue if you need a stronger hold, but it's thick and I thought it would be a good option. And then there's this one. She's clearly already had a life and she's imperfect in a way that feels intentional, so it definitely felt like even more appropriate for dried oranges that were fully on borrowed time anyway. So yeah, I think this is the one.
Oh. Hello. Wanna say hi, Kit Kat? Anyways, I'm just gonna tear this apart a little bit. It is already kind of falling apart, but I think I can just glue that back together and maybe use some twine.
There's definitely something comforting about repurposing things instead of starting fresh. You know, no big decisions, no perfection required, just vibes and basically using whatever you already have to make it work anyway. And I feel like that takes the pressure off, for me anyways, and everything just feels a lot calmer, especially during a season that already asks for so much. This really feels like permission to slow down and just, like I said, use what you have and make it work.
Okay, they're out and I really like the way these look. They're brown, a little bit more brown than I wanted them to look, but they still have like that classic orange vibe. However, I really don't know what happened, but I completely burned these. Like, that is a bit beyond, but I think I'm still going to use them. What I might do is just kind of layer them so that it can give some type of contrast. I have no idea. Okay, some of these came out, in my opinion, like beautifully golden. I knew I wasn't gonna get like the classic, almost fresh orange look because of the way that I did it. There's a lot of sugars in these slices and they tend to caramelize and turn brown, and I didn't do a bunch of other like steps to prevent oxidation and a bunch of things, but I'm okay with these. These look good to me. This is kind of what I figured they'd end up like. You know, like an aged orange. They're still translucent, so you can see right through them. I know it looks wet, but it's actually not. They're really hard. They're preserved, and it's not wet at all. This is what I was hoping. So I got a nice batch of that. I also got a batch of these, and as you can tell, they are a lot darker. Here's the thing. These I kind of forgot about, I'm not gonna lie, and I put them in the oven a little bit longer because most of these were the ones where the slices were a bit uneven, if you can see, and thicker than those other ones. So I put them back in the oven so that they would, you know, continue to dry out, but I low-key forgot about these. So they did turn a darker brown. Like this one is really dark, but the rind is still orange, which is nice. But anyway, I think I'm actually gonna still use these. They're still safe to use. And I don't know, the contrast is actually doing something. So these are the ones that I like. These are the ones that ended up nice. And these turned out a little bit burnt. But I think that if I layer it like this, you know, at least for the wreath, that it'll look okay. Anyway, that's what I'm telling myself so that I don't feel like I have to chuck a whole batch.
Before I actually attached anything, I decided I should lay everything out. Mostly because I know myself, if I don't plan even just a little bit, I will run out halfway through and then convince myself it's fine. So, because I don't have an unlimited supply of sliced oranges, I thought this would be for the best. So I'm just kind of alternating here between the dark ones and the lighter ones just to give it some type of pattern, I guess. And yeah, so this is just me moving things around until it stopped bothering me, pretty much, or until it felt like it looked right. Oh, and then by the way, these are just some sprigs of a garland that I purchased, which are elsewhere in my house, but they fell off and I didn't want to throw them away and it wasn't possible to reattach them. So I thought that if I tucked a couple of pieces here and there, it would actually look pretty good. I don't know, I've never done this before, I'm just going with it. And I thought that it would look good if I left that half open, but just in case, I did add some slices to that side to see if I wanted it to be kind of even or if I wanted to leave it with an asymmetrical look. This is where I confidently start gluing the oranges directly onto the wreath and I immediately snap one in half. So, turns out the darkest, crispiest slice did not appreciate being manhandled, and I thought putting just a little bit of pressure in order for the glue to hold, but anyway, that one sacrificed itself so I could learn a lesson. After that brief moment of denial, I changed tactics. Instead of forcing the slices onto the wreath right away, I started gluing them to each other first, like letting them form into their little nice arch and before I introduced them to the main structure. And once they had some support, attaching them to the wreath was way easier and I didn't crack anymore, so that was good. At this point, I'm just going to let myself zone out and finish it because this is the part where crafting turns into therapy and my brain finally shuts up. So I will let you guys watch in peace too.
Okay, so this is what I have so far. I almost feel like I want to add some little pine cones or something, so I'm gonna see what I can tear up and I'll be right back. Okay, this is the finished look. She's a little wonky, but I love her. She's definitely more oval than circular, but I'm just gonna blame that on her former life as a peace sign. I think that middle line kind of stretched her out and warped her, so yeah, very oval. But I don't know, considering this was made with things I kind of just already had in my house, I think this is not bad. The wreath was repurposed. This is from a garland. They literally fell off. These pine cones were scavenged. The ribbon is scrap. And you know, the oranges were basically on borrowed time anyway. So overall, I feel like this was a win. I think she's super, super cute. Okay, time for the garland. Because I didn't use that many for the wreath, I think I have plenty of slices left over. So I have these wooden beads. It comes with its own jute twine. I also have this mega roll over here in case I run out. And I have this is a completely separate thing. It is a kids crafting kit where you can sew these little felt stuffed animals, but I think it's perfect for what I'm using right now. So it is like a plastic needle, and I think it'll make a decent sized hole in each of the slices and allow me to thread through. The only thing I'm worried about is it won't fit the beads, so let me check real quick. Let's see. Oh, it'll work. Awesome. Okay, that's gonna make this go by a lot faster. Okay, I did not like how it looked on the Christmas tree. I don't know, it just wasn't it. So I'm gonna try to put it right above me up here. This is a paper chain that I also made, and I think it'll give it more dimension if I add another garland, which I was kind of planning to do anyway. I just didn't know what. I might have done twinkle lights or something like that, but I think this will work just fine. I really enjoyed this little crafty day. I think what I liked the most about it was that I used things that I already had and had to kind of get creative with it or just use what worked. And that was really satisfying for me. Like trying to figure it out, trying to problem solve or pivot, all of that was like, it was good for me today. This was such a good reminder that also you don't need a big plan or a bunch of new supplies to make something cozy or just make anything really. Something that you like, that you enjoy. Doesn't have to be like a big production all the time. And you can often find a lot of the things that you need already in your house, which I love. Sometimes it's really just about using what you have and letting it be what it is. This is by far the quickest and simplest thing to do with the orange slices. You just have to loop a little bit of twine through them and then you can hang them up on your tree or use them as present toppers. I honestly do really love how everything turned out. It's obviously not perfect, but I think that adds to like the rustic charm, the handmade charm, like just in general the vibe that I was going for. So it all kind of works perfectly, and I also love that the oranges are throughout my house. It gives it like a nice little touch. Okay, my favorite has to be this wreath. I just loved how it turned out, and I love that I used so many things that I already had. Second favorite has to be the garland because I think it looks a lot better than I thought it was gonna look, especially considering I burned a few slices or, you know, cooked them a little bit too much. The only thing I would change about the garland is I would try to mix in some bigger rounded beads just to kind of give it some dimension, like small beads, big beads, and then the orange slice. And you know, I just think that would look a lot better. But again, I was using what I had. And then the third favorite is definitely the little ornaments. I am okay with how they look on the tree, but I think they will definitely look a lot better on a present. Like in between a ribbon or a bow, nicely wrapped, I think they would look really cute. Anyways, let me know which is your favorite, comment below. Don't forget to also hit like and subscribe if you enjoy this little crafty day with me. I'm gonna try to post weekly here as well, so definitely hit the notification bell so you don't miss my next video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!